I watched from my kitchen window as three men in bright orange vests climbed off a dump truck and started walking around my vacant lot next door. And something about the way they kept pointing at the ground made my stomach drop. I had closed on that half-acre property in Asheville, North Carolina just 6 weeks ago. The plan was simple. Let it sit for a year while I saved up more money, then build a workshop where I could finally start the custom furniture business I'd been dreaming about since college. The lot was perfect, elevated slightly with rich dark topsoil that the inspector said was some of the best he had seen in the area. I paid extra for that lot specifically because of the quality of the land. But now these guys were measuring something, and I did not recognize any of them from the neighborhood. I grabbed my phone and headed outside, crossing my lawn toward the property line. The morning air was crisp, typical for late March in the mountains, and I could see my breath as I called out to them. "Hey, can I help you guys with something?" The tallest one, a middle-aged man with a gray beard, barely glanced at me. "HOA business. You the owner of this lot?" "Yeah, I am. Richard Chambers. What kind of HOA business?" He pulled out a folded paper from his vest pocket and waved it vaguely in my direction. "Got authorization to harvest topsoil for the new entrance project. Should not take more than a few days." I felt my face get hot. "Authorization from who?" "I never authorized anything." "HOA board," he said, like that explained everything. "Your lot is listed as part of the Pine Valley Estate's common areas for resource allocation." "That's my private property." "It's not a common area," he shrugged. "Take it up with the board. We got our work order. We start tomorrow morning." They climbed back in their truck and drove off before I could say anything else, leaving me standing there with my heart pounding. I immediately pulled up the HOA documents on my phone, the ones I had skimmed through at closing. I'd bought my house here 3 years ago, and when I purchased the adjacent lot, I assumed it would fall under the same reasonable HOA rules. Keep your grass cut, no purple houses, that sort of thing. Nowhere in the documents could I find anything about common areas or resource allocation for privately owned lots. I called my real estate attorney, Janet Morrison, and left an urgent voicemail. Then I did something I should have done months ago. I went on Amazon and ordered 4 security cameras with night vision and motion detection. If they were really going to try something on my property, I wanted every second documented. The cameras arrived 2 days later with express shipping, and I spent that entire Saturday afternoon installing them. I mounted one on my garage with a clear view of the lot, another on a post I drove into the ground at the property line, and 2 more at different angles to eliminate blind spots. By evening, I had all 4 connected to my phone with cloud backup recording. The system was not cheap, but watching the live feed from my kitchen gave me a small sense of control over a situation that felt like it was spiraling. Janet finally called me back Sunday evening. "Richard, I reviewed your HOA covenants. There's absolutely nothing in there that gives them rights to your topsoil or any other resources from your private lot. This is cut and dry. Send them a cease and desist letter immediately." "Can you write it?" "I will have it ready tomorrow morning. Do not let them touch that property." Monday morning at 7:30, I was copying the letter at FedEx when my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I pulled up the camera app and felt my blood pressure spike. 2 dump trucks and a front-end loader were already on my lot, and the loader was taking its first massive scoop of dark soil. I ran to my car and drove the 3 minutes home way too fast. By the time I got there, they had already removed what looked like a quarter of the topsoil from the front section of the lot. The loader operator saw me coming and did not even slow down. Stop right now," I was yelling as I ran across my lawn. The loader finally went quiet, and the operator, a younger guy with sunglasses, looked down at me. "Problem? You're stealing from my property. I have a cease and desist letter right here from my attorney." He climbed down slowly, not looking particularly concerned. "Buddy, I just do what I'm told. You got a problem. Talk to the HOA." "I'm talking to you, and you are on my land illegally. Leave now, or I'm calling the police." "Whatever, man." He pulled out his phone and made a call, turning away from me. "Yeah, the owner's here freaking out." "Uh-huh, okay." He hung up and pointed at me. "HOA president is coming over. Should be here in 10 minutes. We're going to take a break." They moved their trucks to the side, but did not leave. I called the non-emergency police line and explained the situation. The dispatcher said she would send an officer to document the dispute. I walked onto my lot to see the damage up close, and it was worse than it looked from the driveway. They had scraped away nearly 8 inches of topsoil from an area about 30 feet by 40 feet, leaving behind a mix of clay and rocks. This was not just cosmetic. This was the foundation for everything I planned to build. Replacing this much quality topsoil would cost thousands of dollars. A silver Lexus SUV pulled up, and out stepped exactly what I expected. A woman in her late 40s with that specific haircut that seemed to be issued along with HOA board positions, blonde with chunks of highlights, cut in a sharp angled bob. She wore expensive-looking workout clothes and oversized sunglasses despite the overcast sky. "I am Barbara Whitley, HOA president. I understand we have a misunderstanding." Her voice dripped with fake sweetness. "No misunderstanding. You are stealing topsoil from my private property." She smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. "Mr. Chambers, when you purchased this lot, you agreed to the HOA master plan. All undeveloped lots are subject to community resource needs until active construction begins." "That's not in any document I signed. My attorney confirmed it." "Well, your attorney is wrong. The master plan is filed with the county. We are well within our rights." "Then show me this master plan." "I do not have to show you anything. The work continues." She turned to the loader operator. "Get back to work, Danny." "Madam, I would not do that." A police cruiser had pulled up, and Officer Martinez was walking toward us, a woman in her 30s with her hand resting casually on her belt. "I need to sort out what's happening here before any more work happens." Barbara's expression tightened, but she kept the fake smile. "Officer, this is a civil HOA matter. We have full authorization to proceed with this community improvement project." Officer Martinez looked at me. "Sir, is this your property?" "Yes, madam. I have the deed right here on my phone and a cease and desist letter from my attorney." I pulled up both documents. She examined them, then looked at Barbara. "Madam, do you have documentation showing HOA rights to this specific property?" "It is in the master plan filed with Buncombe County in 2019. "That's not what I asked. Do you have that documentation with you right now?" Barbara's face flushed. "Not with me, but I can get it." "Then I suggest you stop all work until you can provide proof of authorization. Otherwise, this is trespassing and theft, and I will have to take action." Officer Martinez was calm, but firm. "This is ridiculous. Our community pays taxes that fund your salary, officer." "That's not how it works, madam. Stop the work, get your documentation, and if you have legitimate authorization, you can resume. Until then, these trucks need to leave this property." Barbara looked like she wanted to argue more, but something in Officer Martinez's expression made her reconsider. She pulled out her phone and made a sharp gesture to the workers. "Fine. We will be back with the proper documentation, and then we will finish this job." The trucks rumbled to life and slowly pulled away. Barbara got in her Lexus and left without another word. Officer Martinez handed me her card. "Document everything. Take photos, save videos. If they come back without showing you proper authorization, call us immediately. This looks like a civil property dispute, but if they continue without authorization, it becomes criminal. I have cameras set up. Everything's recorded." "Smart. Keep those recordings backed up somewhere safe." After she left, I stood in the mud pit that used to be prime topsoil and took dozens of photos. Then, I reviewed the camera footage from the morning. I had crystal clear video of the entire operation, with timestamps showing they started work before I could even deliver the cease and desist letter. I emailed everything to Janet, who called me back within an hour. "This is good, Richard. Really good. They have no leg to stand on, and now we have them on video trespassing and removing property. I'm going to file an emergency motion for an injunction and sue for damages and restoration. We are also reporting this to the district attorney's office because this crosses into criminal territory." "How long will this take?" "The injunction hearing should be within a few days. The lawsuit will take longer, but with this video evidence, I like our chances. Do not engage with them. Let me handle everything." That night, I could not sleep. I kept checking the camera feeds, half expecting Barbara to show up with the trucks at midnight. Around 2 a.m, I did see something. A car drove slowly past my lot, stopped for a moment, then continued on. The license plate was not clear enough to read. but the car looked like Barbara's Lexus. The next morning, I received an email from the HOA board demanding I attend an emergency meeting that evening to address violations and uncooperative behavior. I forwarded it to Janet. She called me immediately. "Do not go. This is intimidation. They are trying to create a paper trail to claim you are the problem. I will send them a letter explaining that all communication needs to go through me. What if they fine me or put a lien on my property? They can try, but it would not hold up. They are scrambling because they know they messed up. Let them panic." The hearing for the injunction was scheduled for Thursday, 3 days away. In the meantime, I started digging into the HOA's finances, which were supposed to be available to all homeowners. I requested copies of the last 2 years of budgets, meeting minutes, and the capital improvement plan. Barbara responded with an email saying the documents would be available for review at the HOA office during business hours, by appointment only, with 48 hours notice. Janet sent another letter pointing out that North Carolina law requires HOAs to provide these documents within 10 business days of a written request, and that appointment-only access for public records was not acceptable. On Wednesday, I got a call from my neighbor across the street, George Patterson, a retired engineer in his 60s who had lived in Pine Valley Estate since it was built. "Richard, I heard about what's happening with your lot. Barbara came by yesterday trying to get me to sign a petition supporting the HOA's actions." "Did you sign it?" "Hell no. I told her what she's doing is wrong. But I want you to know something. This entrance project, it is not even approved by the full board. Barbara pushed it through with just her vote and one other person, Cheryl Henderson. The other 3 board members were not at that meeting. I checked the minutes." "How did you see the minutes?" "I'm on the Architectural Review Committee, so I get copies. Barbara's been running this HOA like her personal kingdom for 2 years now. Most people do not pay attention, but she's been making decisions without proper votes, spending money on things that were not budgeted, and now this. I think she promised someone this specific topsoil for the entrance because it is high quality, and she was trying to get it done before anyone noticed." "Who's the entrance project for?" "That's the thing. The entrance to Pine Valley Estates is fine. It does not need work. But Barbara's brother-in-law owns a landscaping company, and I would bet money he's involved in this somehow." This was getting deeper than I thought. "George, would you be willing to testify about this if needed?" "Absolutely. I am sick of what she's been doing. Other people are too, but everyone's afraid of retaliation. Fines, violation notices, that kind of thing." Thursday morning, Janet and I met at the courthouse for the injunction hearing. Barbara showed up with a lawyer, a nervous-looking young guy in an ill-fitting suit who kept glancing at his phone. The judge, a gray-haired woman named Judge Sarah Chen, listened to both sides. Barbara's attorney argued that the HOA had broad authority over undeveloped lots, and that this was a simple contract dispute that did not warrant an injunction. Janet presented the deed, the HOA covenants, and the video footage of the trucks removing topsoil. "Your Honor, this is not a contract dispute. This is theft. The defendants cannot produce any signed authorization from my client, and they began work despite receiving a cease and desist letter. The video evidence is unambiguous." Judge Chen watched the footage on Janet's laptop, her expression growing stern. "Counselor," she addressed Barbara's attorney, "do you have any documentation showing specific authorization to remove material from this property?" "We have the master plan that establishes HOA resource rights over undeveloped lots, Your Honor." "Do you have it with you?" "Not at this moment, but we can provide it." "You have had several days since this dispute started. Why is it not here now?" He did not have a good answer. Judge Chen turned back to the video, watching the loader scoop up the dark soil while I was clearly not present. "This looks like trespassing and theft. Injunction granted. The HOA is ordered to cease all activity on the plaintiff's property and to make no contact with the plaintiff except through counsel. Furthermore, I am ordering the HOA to provide full documentation of this alleged master plan within 48 hours or face contempt charges. We will reconvene Monday morning." Walking out of the courthouse, I felt the first real relief in days. Janet squeezed my shoulder. "That went very well. If they cannot produce this master plan, and I am betting they cannot, we are looking at a strong case for damages." That evening, I got a message from George. You need to see this. He sent me a link to the Pine Valley Estates HOA Facebook group, which I had not even known existed. Barbara had posted a long message about how I was a hostile homeowner who was preventing necessary community improvements and wasting HOA resources on frivolous legal battles. She claimed the topsoil removal was minor and that I was overreacting. The comments were mixed. Some people sided with her, saying homeowners should support community projects, but others were questioning why they had not heard about this entrance project and why topsoil removal from private property was necessary. One comment stood out. It was from a user named Patricia Morales. I am on the HOA board and I knew nothing about this project. Barbara, why was this not voted on at a full meeting? The thread exploded after that. 2 other board members chimed in, also saying they had not approved any such project. Barbara's responses became defensive and vague, talking about executive authority and time-sensitive opportunities. By Friday morning, the Facebook group had become a full civil war. Someone had shared photos of my mud pit, and people were shocked at how much soil had been removed. Another neighbor posted that they had seen the dump trucks taking multiple loads to a property on Mountain View Road, which happened to be where Barbara's brother-in-law was working on a high-end landscaping project for a new boutique hotel. The pieces were falling into place. Barbara had not been taking the soil for a Pine Valley Estates entrance project. She'd been stealing it to help her brother-in-law complete a private commercial job, probably getting some kind of kickback in the process. Janet called me with an update. The HOA's attorney just withdrew from the case. That's a very bad sign for them, which is a very good sign for us. It means he probably realized they have no defense, and he does not want his name attached to this. What happens now? They will have to find new representation or show up pro se. Either way, the Monday hearing is going to be interesting. Oh, and one more thing. I reported this to the DA's office with all our evidence. They are opening an investigation into potential embezzlement and fraud. Monday came fast. The courthouse was more crowded this time because word had spread through the neighborhood. George was there, along with at least a dozen other Pine Valley Estates residents. Barbara showed up alone, no attorney. Judge Chen did not look happy. Ms. Whitley, where is your legal representation? I am representing the HOA myself, Your Honor. This has been blown out of proportion by a difficult homeowner and his aggressive attorney. Ms. Whitley, this is a legal proceeding, not a neighborhood dispute. Do you have the documentation I ordered? Barbara pulled out a thin folder. I have the master plan document. She handed it to the bailiff, who gave it to the judge. Judge Chen read through it, her frown deepening. Ms. Whitley, this document makes no mention of topsoil removal rights. It discusses general maintenance authority over common areas, but there is nothing here that gives the HOA rights to extract resources from privately owned lots. It is implied in Section 7, Your Honor, where it discusses community improvement projects. Implied is not the same as explicitly authorized. This section discusses maintenance of roads, sidewalks, and communal landscaping. Nothing about harvesting materials from private property. Judge Chen set the document down. Furthermore, I have reviewed the affidavits provided by Mr. Chambers' attorney, including statements from multiple HOA board members who say this project was never properly voted on or approved. Would you like to address that? Barbara's face was red now. The board gave me executive authority to handle urgent community needs. Do you have documentation of that authority? It is in the bylaws. The bylaws provided by Mr. Chambers' attorney specify that projects over $5,000 require a full board vote. Topsoil removal and transportation would certainly exceed that threshold. Ms. Whitley, where did the removed topsoil go? Barbara hesitated. It was transported to a staging area for the entrance project. What staging area? Where specifically? I do not have that information with me. Janet stood. Your Honor, we have evidence that the topsoil was transported to a commercial property on Mountain View Road, where Ms. Whitley's brother-in-law, Thomas Whitley, is the landscape contractor on a hotel project. We have photos of dump trucks with identifying numbers from the HOA hired company at that location. Judge Chen's expression went from stern to angry. Ms. Whitley, did you authorize the removal of topsoil from Mr. Chambers' property for use on your brother-in-law's commercial project? That is not. The soil was needed for community purposes. Answer the question directly. Yes or no. Barbara looked trapped. The entrance project and the hotel project were going to share resources to save money. So yes, you diverted topsoil from a private homeowner's property for use on a commercial project connected to your family member without authorization from the property owner or the HOA board. Do I have that correct? Barbara did not answer. Ms. Whitley, I am making this injunction permanent. The HOA is prohibited from any activity on Mr. Chambers' property. I am also awarding Mr. Chambers compensatory damages for the cost of topsoil replacement, which his attorney has documented at $7,300, plus legal fees of $12,000. You have 30 days to pay. Additionally, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney and recommending criminal charges for theft and abuse of authority. We are adjourned. The courtroom burst into whispered conversations. Barbara grabbed her folder and rushed out without looking at anyone. Several neighbors came up to thank me for exposing what had been happening. George shook my hand. That woman has been running roughshod over this community for too long. This needed to happen. Over the next few weeks, things moved quickly. Barbara resigned from the HOA board immediately after the hearing. 2 other board members who had enabled her behavior also resigned under pressure from the community. An emergency election was held, and George was voted in as the new president, along with 2 other longtime residents who actually cared about doing things properly. The district attorney's investigation uncovered that Barbara had been using HOA funds for personal expenses for over a year, including charging personal landscaping work at her own home to the HOA account and accepting kickbacks from contractors. The total embezzlement was over $30,000. Barbara was arrested in early May and charged with multiple counts of embezzlement, theft, and fraud. Her brother-in-law, Thomas, was also charged as an accessory since he had knowingly accepted the stolen topsoil. The local news picked up the story. I gave one interview, keeping it brief and factual. The video footage from my cameras was used in the news report, showing the clear timeline of events. It felt surreal seeing my mud pit on the evening news. The HOA paid the damages Judge Chen awarded, and I used that money to have quality topsoil brought in and spread across my lot. The landscaping company I hired, one with no connection to Barbara or Thomas, did excellent work. By mid-June, my lot looked even better than it had originally. Barbara's criminal trial was scheduled for September. Janet told me I would need to testify, and I was ready. The evidence was overwhelming, between the camera footage, the financial records the DA had subpoenaed, and the testimony from other board members and neighbors. In July, something unexpected happened. Barbara's attorney reached out to the DA about a plea deal. She agreed to plead guilty to all charges in exchange for a reduced sentence. She was ordered to pay full restitution to the HOA and to me, along with 2 years in prison and 5 years probation. Thomas took a similar deal, getting probation and community service since his role was smaller. The community breathed easier. George and the new board implemented actual transparency measures. All meetings were recorded and posted online, financial statements were published monthly, and any project over $1,000 required a full board vote with at least 10 days' notice to the community. By September, I had the foundation poured for my workshop. The contractor was impressed with the topsoil quality, joking that it was better than what he usually saw on construction sites. I did not tell him the whole story, just smiled and agreed. On a cool October morning, I stood in the framed structure of my future workshop, looking out over the lot that had caused so much trouble. The autumn leaves were brilliant orange and red against the blue mountain sky. My phone buzzed with a text from George. "Me? New entrance sign just went up. Come check it out." I drove to the Pine Valley Estates entrance, the original one that had never actually needed any work. A new stone sign had been installed, simple and elegant, with better lighting and some tasteful landscaping. It looked professional and welcoming, completed under budget using money recovered from Barbara's restitution. George was there, admiring the work. "What do you think?" "Looks great. This is what it should have been from the start." "Agreed. Hey, a bunch of us are grabbing dinner tonight at the new barbecue place. You should come. Everyone wants to thank you properly." "For what? I was just protecting my property." for standing up when most people would have just let it go, for documenting everything and doing it the right way. You changed this community for the better, Richard. That evening, I sat in a crowded restaurant surrounded by neighbors who had become friends through this ordeal. We told stories, laughed about the absurdity of the whole situation, and made plans for actual community improvements that everyone agreed on. Patricia Morales, one of the new board members, raised her glass. To Richard, for proving that security cameras are the best investment a homeowner can make. Everyone laughed and cheered. I felt something I had not expected when this all started, genuine connection to this place and these people. What started as a violation had somehow led to building something better. Later that night, I checked the camera feeds one last time before bed, a habit I had developed. Everything was quiet. My lot sat peaceful under the security lights, the rich soil ready for whatever I wanted to build. The workshop construction would finish in a few weeks, and then I could finally start the furniture business I had been planning. My phone showed a notification from the cloud backup system, 30 days of footage archived and secured. I thought about deleting some of the older footage to save space, but then decided to keep it all. Not because I expected more trouble, but because it was a reminder that sometimes the systems we set up to protect ourselves end up protecting entire communities. The next morning, I met with my contractor to review the final workshop plans. He had some ideas about the interior layout that would maximize workflow and natural light. As we walked the site discussing details, I noticed he was careful about where he stepped, avoiding the areas where new grass was just starting to come in. "You take good care of this land," he said. "I can tell you respect the property." "I do. I waited a long time to find the right place." "Shows. Most people just see dirt and grass. You see potential." He was right. This lot had always been about potential. Potential for creation, for building something lasting, for developing the dream I had been nurturing since I was a kid, working in my grandfather's garage. Barbara had tried to steal that potential, literally scraping it away for her own gain. But she had not succeeded. The workshop walls went up over the next few weeks, and I spent most of my weekends on site, sometimes helping with smaller tasks, mostly just watching the structure take shape. There is something deeply satisfying about seeing a vision become tangible, watching skilled people transform raw materials into something purposeful. In November, George called an HOA meeting to discuss the annual budget. For the first time in years, the meeting was well attended because people actually trusted that their voices would be heard. The budget passed unanimously after transparent discussion about priorities and costs. During the open forum section, an older woman named Helen raised her hand. She lived 3 houses down from me and had been in the neighborhood since it was developed. "I want to say something about the incident with Richard's property," she began, her voice a little shaky. "I have lived here 20 years, and I watched Barbara Whitley become more controlling and aggressive over time. Many of us knew something was wrong, but we were scared to speak up. We were scared of fines, of harassment, of becoming targets. Richard was not scared, and his bravery gave the rest of us permission to demand better. I am grateful for that, and I am grateful we have leadership now that respects all of us." The room applauded. I felt my face get warm, uncomfortable with the attention but moved by the sincerity. After the meeting, several people approached me with their own stories of Barbara's behavior over the years. Violations for tiny infractions, threatening letters, selective enforcement of rules against people she did not like. The picture that emerged was of someone who had seen the HOA as a personal fiefdom and who had become increasingly bold in her abuses because no one had challenged her. "Why did not anyone go to the other board members?" I asked one neighbor. The other board members were either too busy to pay attention or they were her friends. By the time anyone realized how bad it was, she had consolidated power. Your situation was so blatant and so well documented that it could not be ignored. That is why your cameras mattered so much. December brought cold weather and the workshop completion. The contractor did a final walkthrough with me, pointing out details and explaining maintenance requirements. When he left, I stood alone in the empty space, breathing in the smell of new wood and paint. The concrete floor was smooth and level, the electrical panel ready for all my tools, the windows positioned to capture morning light. I spent Christmas setting up equipment. The table saw I had been storing in my garage for 3 years finally had a proper home. The planer, the joiner, the bandsaw, all the tools I'd collected in anticipation of this moment, now arranged in a functional layout. By New Year's Eve, I was ready to work. My first project was a dining table for George and his wife, a thank you for his support during the HOA mess. I chose walnut, a beautiful hardwood with rich brown tones and dramatic grain patterns. Working with wood had always been meditative for me. The careful measurement and cutting, the gradual transformation of rough lumber into something refined and functional. As I worked, I thought about how differently things could have gone. If I had not installed those cameras, Barbara would have taken all the topsoil and I would have had no proof of what happened. She would have denied everything, produced some fake documentation, and probably gotten away with it. The cameras had not just protected my property, they had created an undeniable record of the truth. In January, Janet called with final news. Barbara's restitution payments have started. You should see the first check this week. Also, the civil lawsuit against the HOA is settled. They are paying an additional $5,000 for punitive damages and emotional distress. The new board wanted to make it right. That is generous of them. They are trying to rebuild trust. George told me they are using Barbara's case as an example in their new board member training about what not to do. Good. Maybe it will prevent this from happening to someone else. February brought my first commission, a bookshelf for a client in Charlotte who had seen photos of George's table on social media. Then another commission and another. By March, exactly 1 year after the topsoil theft, I had enough regular work to quit my day job in IT support and focus on furniture full-time. The workshop that I built on land that Barbara tried to destroy had become the foundation of a new life. Every piece of furniture I created came from that lot, from soil that had been violated but then restored. There was poetry in that, I thought, the idea that something damaged could be made better than before. On a warm April evening, I was in the workshop finishing a rocking chair when I heard voices outside. I looked out to see a small group of neighbors gathered at the edge of my lot looking at something. I walked out to see what was happening. "Richard, come look at this," Patricia called. I walked over to where they stood. The area where Barbara's trucks had created the mud pit was now covered in wildflowers, purple and yellow, and white blooms swaying in the breeze. They had grown from seeds mixed into the replacement topsoil, and now, a year later, they were thriving. "It is beautiful," someone said. "Better than it was before," George agreed. I stood there with my neighbors, watching the sunset light catch the flowers, and felt a sense of completion. The story that began with theft and violation had ended with beauty and community. Barbara was serving her sentence, the HOA was functioning properly, and my workshop was producing work I was proud of. The cameras still recorded everything, silent witnesses on their posts, but these days they mostly captured peaceful suburban life, kids riding bikes, neighbors walking dogs, delivery trucks coming and going. I kept the cloud storage subscription active, though, because some lessons are too important to forget. That night, I reviewed the footage from a year ago, watching the dump trucks arrive and the loader tear into my soil. Then, I pulled up the current live feed, showing the wildflowers moving in the wind and the warm light coming from my workshop windows. Same location, completely different story. I saved both clips in a folder labeled Before and After, knowing I would probably never look at them again but wanting them preserved. Evidence is important, truth is important, but growth and recovery are important too. The next morning, I started work on my most ambitious project yet, a complete dining room set for a client in Atlanta. 10 chairs, a table that seated 12, and a matching sideboard. It would take months to complete, but I had the time and the space and the skill. Everything I needed had come from standing up for what was right and documenting the truth. As I measured and marked the first pieces of cherry wood, I thought about all the people who had been affected by Barbara's actions. The HOA members who had lost money, the neighbors who had been intimidated, the community trust that had been damaged. All of it was repairing now, slowly but steadily, like topsoil regenerating after disruption. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I did not recognize. "Mr. Chambers, this is Thomas Whitley. I wanted to apologize for my part in what happened to your property. I knew it was wrong, and I did it anyway because Barbara is family. I am sorry. I hope your workshop is doing well." I stared at the message for a long time, considering how to respond. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to let him sit with his guilt without any resolution. But another part, the part that had been strengthened by this whole experience, knew that healing required more than just punishment. "Apology accepted," I typed back. "Make better choices going forward." His response was immediate. "I will. Thank you." Short exchange, but meaningful. Barbara had never apologized, had never shown any remorse beyond regret at being caught. Thomas, at least, seemed to understand what he had done wrong. Maybe his probation and community service would actually lead to real change. By summer, my workshop had become a destination. People scheduled appointments to come see my work, to discuss custom pieces, to understand the process of transforming raw wood into functional art. I gave tours, explaining my techniques and showing off the tools that made it all possible. During one tour, a young couple asked about the wildflowers growing on part of my lot. "That is a reminder," I said. "Something bad happened there, but we fixed it and made it better. The flowers are proof that damage does not have to be permanent." They nodded, not knowing the full story, just appreciating the sentiment. George stopped by one afternoon with a proposal. "The HOA wants to commission a piece from you, a table for the community center meeting room. We will pay your normal rate. We want something that represents the new direction of Pine Valley Estates." "What kind of design are you thinking?" "Something honest. Clean lines, quality materials, built to last. Nothing fancy or pretentious." "I can do that." I designed a simple but elegant conference table in white oak with a live edge that preserved the natural contour of the tree. The design honored the wood's inherent character rather than forcing it into something artificial. It felt right for what the HOA was trying to communicate. Building the table took 6 weeks. I worked carefully, aware that this piece would be seen and used by the entire community. When it was finished, George and several board members came to see it in my workshop before we moved it to the community center. Patricia ran her hand along the smooth surface. "This is exactly what we needed." "Thank you, Richard." "It is just a table. It is more than that. It is a symbol that we are building something better now." They installed the table in the community center, and at the next HOA meeting, everyone commented on it. Some people recognized it as my work. Others just appreciated the craftsmanship. Either way, it represented a turning point, a physical manifestation of the community's commitment to doing things right. In September, Barbara was released from prison after serving her full 2-year sentence. She moved out of Pine Valley Estates immediately, and I heard through George that she relocated to another state to live with her daughter. I felt neither satisfaction nor sympathy at the news, just a sense of closure. The cameras captured her moving truck driving past my house one last time. She did not look toward my lot or the workshop. She just stared straight ahead as the truck carried her belongings away from the community she had damaged. October brought cooler weather and a reflection on everything that had changed in 18 months. The lot that had been a mud pit was now a thriving landscape with native plants and wildflowers. The workshop that had been just a dream was now a successful business. The HOA that had been dysfunctional was now a model of proper governance. And me? I had discovered that standing up for what is right, documenting the truth, and refusing to be intimidated could change not just my own situation, but an entire community's trajectory. On a crisp morning, I stood in my workshop doorway with a cup of coffee, watching the sun rise over the mountains. The cameras on their posts recorded the scene silently, capturing another peaceful day in Pine Valley Estates. I smiled, thinking about how those cameras had started as a defensive measure, but had become something more, a testament to the power of evidence and accountability. My phone showed the day's schedule: finish a set of nightstands, start preliminary designs for a client's kitchen cabinets, meet with a couple about their wedding gift furniture. A full day of work I loved, in a space I had fought to protect, surrounded by a community I had helped heal. The wildflowers swayed in the morning breeze, their seeds already spreading to new areas of the lot, creating more beauty from the site of the original violation. Growth, recovery, transformation, all possible because I had refused to let injustice stand unchallenged. I went back into the workshop, set my coffee down, and powered up the table saw. There was work to do: furniture to build, dreams to realize. The cameras would keep recording, the community would keep improving, and the land would keep producing beauty. Some stories have endings, but the best ones become foundations for new beginnings. And that mud pit that Barbara's trucks had created? It was now the most beautiful part of my property. A riot of color that attracted butterflies and birds, a space that reminded everyone who saw it that destruction can become creation, that wrong can become right, and that sometimes the worst moments in our lives can lead to the best outcomes. I thought about all the homeowners out there dealing with their own HOA nightmares, feeling powerless against arbitrary rules and power-hungry board members. If they could learn anything from my experience, I hoped it was this: document everything, know your rights, stand firm, and trust that the truth will prevail when it is properly preserved and presented. The cameras were still recording, the workshop was still standing, the community was still healing, and I was still here, building furniture and a life on land that someone tried to steal but could not destroy. That is the real ending, I thought, not defeat or even victory, but persistence and growth and the quiet satisfaction of knowing you did the right thing, even when it was difficult. The table saw hummed to life, and I began the day's work, surrounded by tools and wood and possibility. Outside, the cameras captured another frame, another moment, another piece of evidence that life goes on and gets better when people refuse to accept injustice. This was home now, truly and completely. Not just a house and a lot, but a community built on accountability and respect. All because I installed some cameras and refused to look away when someone powerful tried to take what was mine. The wood grain flowed beneath my hands as I worked, each pass of the blade bringing the design closer to reality. This was what I was meant to do, in the place I was meant to do it, protected by technology and law in a community that had learned to value both. Perfect ending? Maybe not. But it was real, and it was mine, and nobody was taking it away.